Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you. Please pray with me. Our Father in heaven, we do worship you and bless your great name that you are the God of all the earth. You're the maker of every single person made in your own image, that you love the world. You love those who even defy you because you provide such a beautiful world for us to live in. The rain falls on everyone. You demonstrate that you have so loved the world in that you freely offer forgiveness of sins and a new life in Christ through the Holy Spirit to all. And so we are thankful that you love the world, and so therefore we can love the world, and that we don't have the responsibility of discerning who we ought to witness to and who we ought not to, but rather we freely offer the gospel to everyone. And we praise you and thank you for the Cherokee people. We grieve over their heritage over the centuries. But on the other hand, we know that you are at work amongst the Cherokee. And so we do delight in that work, and that you have called this particular congregation and this particular team to freely demonstrate Christ to the Cherokee people. And we look forward to hearing what you've done over this past mission trip to Cherokee, and we do celebrate the growth now with the church plant there, and we just do pray that you please minister your grace to the hills and to the becks as they serve the people there. And we thank you and praise you now for each one that's here, and pray that you be exalted in this service. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated. We do rejoice, Jay, on this is at least the 10th, maybe 11th year consecutively that you've gone to Cherokee leading a team. And I know you at least went, if not led teams before that too, so I don't know how many altogether. But thank you so much for your enthusiasm and your joy that is so evident in your ministry with the Cherokee team. And so we do welcome each of you in Christ's name and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Well, good evening. See if my IT guy knows what he's doing back there. All right? I was going to do signs. See, this is mine, and I would go like this every time we change the slide. There you go. All right. First of all, thank you. Thank you very much for coming tonight to hear about what we did a few weeks ago. Also, thank you for all your support, all the prayers, the financial support as well, and for the families who allowed their kids or whole families to go. This is just even going, I think, was a tremendous sacrifice, and I think trust that God is greater even than COVID. So thank you for that. Kind of funny, I don't know if it's funny, but interesting that a couple of the verses I have, Sean actually was using this morning. So I don't know if he was copying from me or vice versa. But I wanted to open with Acts 20:35. It says, "I have shown you in every way by laboring like this that you must support the weak. And remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive." Kind of interesting. So this mission trip was a lot different than ones in the past. So we were actually truly going to serve the full-time missionaries there. Past weeks we've been to, basically spend half a day working on some project, and then going out to a nursing home, Solly Care, and ministering to people in Cherokee. for a variety of reasons, that just wasn't possible this year. So it was a unique time to be able to go and really serve the Hills and the Becks in particular, and do a lot of repairs. And we'll get into that as we move on here. So I'll do this, and there you go. All right. There's the team. If you notice, Scott is hovering above the team. He wasn't there at our first picture, so I had to plug him in there somewhere. It seemed appropriate. So Scott was looking over us. Just a quick story. So Scott went last year. Was excited to go this year, and the week prior, one of his roommates got sick. Had to go in and get tested for COVID, so he wasn't going to be able to go. What was it, that Sunday or Monday?
Monday night.
Yeah, Monday night, his test came back negative. I guess he had, bronchitis. So Scott got in his car and drove out there. Was out there Tuesday and was there with us for the rest of the week. So thank you, Scott. It was a pleasure to have Scott playing the piano as well, and just really being a part of the team, and really sacrificing in a lot of ways. Just highlights kind of how different this team was. I did have a couple things I wanted to share. I'm going to get into a little bit about what we did before I turn over to the team. So I had a few memories that I jotted down. I thought it would be worth sharing now because I don't know if they'll come up when everybody else is talking. So these are memories of just the team for that week. The first one, and I really have to feel for the Lehman family putting up with Bruce's dad jokes. We got a sampling of them, I think, every day, and they were pretty bad. But I appreciated them anyways. We got to see our pastor dancing. I think I've got a picture of that in here, and that was pretty disturbing as well. It was a lasting memory, though. Emily Drape swinging a 10-pound sledgehammer. I'm serious. I don't know how many people here have swung, a sledge, but she did it. And I think I've got a couple pictures in here. That was impressive. Ariana was helping me cut through at least a 36-inch tree, and she, on her own, you know how big Ariana is, was rolling these stumps down a hill. They probably weighed 3 times as much as she did. That was pretty interesting. Our morning devotions, and it's probably something that nobody here has even experienced in quite a while, is having 19 people get together at 6:30 in the morning and just have a simple devotion each morning. See, Scott driving out Tuesday, that was truly inspiring, Scott, that you would do that on your own. Let's see. A couple of things also that stood out is, I think probably one of the themes for this week is the idea that sometimes God pushes us out of our comfort zones. And that's what you saw during this week. And the other thing, too, is that was really highlighted is that missionaries, and this was shared, I can't remember who shared this in devotion one morning, but missionaries sometimes choose a path that is very hard, and that's what you see here. And if you can imagine, for the Hills, they have been quarantined from the Cherokee people, and that's their mission, that's their outreach, and the Becks as well. So particularly hard time to be a missionary right now. It's just an example for them, but think of the missionaries worldwide. I think it's a tremendous time to be in prayer for them because it is very difficult. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Just a picture of our past teams. Try to throw a few more pictures in there every year when we do this. We've had quite a legacy from the church for the last 20 plus years going. I think the cutest picture on that is Liz Horn, right in the middle there with her glasses. I think that was 2005, if I remember right. But we've had, that's something to that you all should feel really good about is just the amount of support that the church here has given to Cherokee over the years. And I know, just out of curiosity, how many people have gone to Cherokee before? That's a pretty large number. That's, from years past, so thank you as well. And it really speaks to the love we have. Thank you for pointing that out, Luke. Luke both raised his hand. But again, that really speaks to the love that this church has for the Cherokee people as well. Go ahead, next slide. So this year was quite different. The MTW ministry in Cherokee, they have a longing to reach the people of Cherokee. And through that, Scott and Ruth Hill, through their efforts and efforts of teams like us, have actually established a church there, Grace Community Church. And in years past teams, we would go and we would support them by doing, they work with the Cherokee people, and they identify people in dire need, whether it's to have a home repaired or built, could be putting a new roof on, it could be some kind of landscaping needs. And then we go out and we spend a week, serving a family or two. And then in the afternoons, we also, typically in the past, we would go to Solicare, which is an elderly care facility, and share some time with them. Obviously, all of that was off the table. And this year, actually, they canceled all their short-term mission trips completely across the board. And that's not just in Cherokee, but MTW did that across all of their ministries. If you have a chance, you go to the MTW website. It has a listing of all the missionaries that they support all over the world. So I got a call. It basically got canceled, and like a week after it got canceled, I got a call from Mike Pfeiffer, who's the manager he is the manager for Native American outreach for MTW. And he asked if we'd be willing to bring our team out to do maintenance on the actual camp itself. And this is something, and for those of you who haven't been to Cherokee, it's on a camp that used to be, I think it was like an old KOA campground that the Cherokee people, they own. And they've leased it to MTW for 20 plus years. And of course, all the maintenance, everything there has to be done by either the full-time missionaries or teams that come in. And most years, there just isn't time, because the focus is outward. It's taking care of as many people as we can, planting the seeds that then can be cultivated by the full-time missionaries there. So this year was a real blessing to them. There's just a whole list, and it was quite thick of all the projects to be done, everything from roofing to replacing rotten siding, landscaping, putting in some stairs, painting, and it's a laundry list of things that in normal years just wouldn't get done. So it was a real blessing to be able to take a team out there. There was us, there was a family of 5, and one other couple who came out. But it's a total with the missionaries there. I think there were maybe 28 people on the camp, and basically we worked from right after breakfast until the end of the day. Which I didn't realize. Maybe it was Joseph I was talking to after the first day. I was like, man, I'm way more tired than I usually am. And it's because, we worked all day. We didn't get that break in the middle to go. There was no complaining. We had just a tremendous amount of effort jumping from one job to, and none of the jobs were the same. I think we split up into about 4 or 5 different teams, doing everything from chopping down trees, again, to roofing, siding, painting, you name it. This team did it during the week. Hauling gravel, tons of gravel. And I'm probably at least a ton of gravel. So a couple of things that particularly impacted was the ability to serve those who serve and to fellowship daily with our team. For me, that was probably the biggest impact. One thing to take away too is, gospel outreach and service doesn't end just because the world says that it's too hard. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind as well. Regardless of what's going on around us, the gospel, we still have a mission. People say it's too hard. It really isn't. And I think the week that we had was a testament to that. Go ahead, next slide. Picture of Grace Community Church. We actually, for the first time, our team, if you looking at the building, if you look at your left-hand side, a few years ago, or I guess 2 years ago, our team helped build that part of the building, all the framing and even hanging some of the trusses. So it was a real blessing this year to actually go inside, and we worshiped in the church on that Sunday morning, which we don't normally get to do because we're usually leading a service at Solicare. So it was particularly cool to be there that morning. And it was great to have Sean there because Pastor Hill was streaming. He had to stream from his house. So Sean kind of led off the service just like we would here at New Life. In fact, it felt like a service at New Life. And then basically when the sermon was teed up, kind of turned it over to Pastor Hill, and it was just a sweet time of fellowship. And that really represents, one of the visions there is that someday, that church would be filled with Cherokee people, and that it wouldn't be Pastor Hill, but it'd be somebody, a Cherokee, actually being the pastor there in the pulpit in that church. Scott and Ruth Hill have just done amazing things there. Their love for the Cherokee people is incredible, as well as Norm and Julie Beck. So go ahead, next slide. Quick picture of the Becks and the Hills, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about them. I know you guys are familiar. They've been here before, and they've spoken at our church. Actually, they've both been speakers at YOA for our youth group as well. Norm and Julie they're going to be moving on from Cherokee starting, I think, soon. I think they'd said like August, September timeframe. They're looking to be full-time missionaries, and they were targeting overseas in Europe. So continue to keep them in your prayers. And also pray for someone else, another couple to come in there to fill that void. They've had a great outreach to the youth there in Cherokee. And the Hills, you see their kids there, their son, Jonathan, I believe, I think he's engaged. And I can't remember is their daughter married now? No, I can't remember. She's in college. I think she's got a boyfriend too. That's what I'm thinking of. But it's been kind of neat to see them grow up too. They've actually been to our youth group when they were in high school. And they just recently, they bought a house outside. So for those of you who've been there, there's that little trailer house, which is really in rough shape. They bought their house, I think it's in Bryson City there. So please continue to pray for them. And the prayer is that next summer, we can go back to normal, have mission teams there, but they certainly need our prayer, especially in times like this. Scott, for those of you can follow him on Facebook, he streams a service there from Cherokee every Sunday, and they continue to be an integral part of the Cherokee culture there, really reaching out to so many people there in the community. All right, next slide. With that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to Bruce and Sharon, or one of you two.
We had, Emily has enjoyed Cherokee for the last couple years, and we'd always wanted to do a mission trip as a family, so this year was the year that we chose. And I'm going to share something from a different perspective about the trip that I think reflects the congregation. And that is, we had 6 or 7 senior volunteers that came in from the week to assist us, people that ran the kitchen, guys that helped equip us with the tools and prepare us for the jobs. And during the whole week, we kept getting comments about how wonderful all of the kids were, how how much they love God, and what incredible service they did and how hard they worked. And I wanted to talk about that for a moment, to talk about how they got there. And I think the first way they got there is parents' priorities. The parents were committed to discipleship of their children in the home, committed to their commitment in the church, and then really prioritizing a lot of the youth ministries that I think built a lot of what those volunteers saw. And so one of the things I want to do, I don't want to see a show of hands to the end, but I want to run through a list of things. There's a lot of ministries in the church besides youth ministries, so not everyone's going to be a raised hand, but I want us to see how many raised hands there are. So I'm going to ask for a show of hands in a moment of everyone who at some point has helped in the nursery, children's church, VBS, Sunday school, Pioneer Girls, Boys Brigade, drama, choir, or music with the youth, the junior or senior youth, high school and youth group, the missions committee, and or Cherokee trips, and one other thing, contributed to support someone on a Cherokee trip. If I could see hands. Okay, so if we look around, that's a large part of why they were impressed with our kids. They're impressed because the church builds our youth for 14, 16, 18 years, depending on when we started the clock. 18 years if we start the clock in nursery. So we want to thank you for that. Credit also goes to the youth themselves for their priority in responding to the ministries and seeking God. Credit goes to Jay and Brenda in the years of investment that they have made into the team. Wonderful leadership and shepherding the team. And it was good to have Pastor Sean with us, to have our senior pastor, and then a lot of the young adults kind of grew up on the Cherokee team, so they had been on it as youth, and continue to come back and serve alongside as adults helping out. And then the other thing is, Jay already mentioned it. People have to send the team, and we want to thank everyone that has supported the team. We will, some people have probably gotten their thank you notes out. The Laymans will get theirs out shortly. But we're very grateful for very generous support. It was amazing we saw the list while we were at Cherokee, and we're very grateful for those that sent us. And then finally, I think those were the most important things to me, but also the other comments we got was they were amazed at how hard our youth worked. Jay talked about normally you worked a half a day and then you ministered at Solly Care. And Jay commented on, it was humid, it was hot, and the tasks were challenging. So I also want to encourage you parents that sent youth that your kids are good for about 6 hours of hard labor. So.
Hello, my name is Joseph, as you can see right there. I've been going to Cherokee for the past 5 years, and this year was really cool and special because unlike all the other years where we had a split work day, we got to work 2 periods, so you got to work with the team a lot more than you usually do, because usually at solid care you split into small groups, visit people in different rooms, or you sit like me and build puzzles with ladies and have fun like that. I will go through and explain some of these photos. So the first one at the top left, I am scraping paint on a rickety wood ladder that could have fallen at any second. Really, we shouldn't be using it. And the second photo, pretty sure I'm taking a nap during the game of signs. In the third photo, I fell into the river. So about 5 minutes before we left, my thinking was, oh, I'm kind of hot, let me dip my head in the water. And when the water is below your knees, I don't have the flexibility to dip my head below my knees, and so my body was like, okay, bam, and now I was wet. So that was a fun wet trip back. Let me flip through my notes. Okay, so I was thankful that the trip went smoothly down. Nothing broke down. We made it through really smoothly. It's like the third year that we've had no accidents, nothing crashed, no like unnecessary 3-hour trips at McDonald's. It was kind of nice. And I would say a lot of the time that I enjoyed the most was in the evenings, because I got to sit down and talk with different people and just talk about the week and what we learned. Like the first night, I got to sit and sing songs with Mrs. Lehman, Juliana, and Ariana. And we were going through the MTW songbook, and we were just singing songs a cappella. And I'm not a great singer, but it was a lot of fun to do. And then the second evening, I got to sit down and talk with Juliana, Ariana, and then Catherine Lehman joined us, and we were just talking about what we learned through different devotions throughout the week, even though it just began. And then Scott joined us on Tuesday, which was really surprising. We were all like super happy that he made it. He came, right before a thunderstorm, and we were all just like, yeah, Scott's made it, and we were all excited. And it was just good to have someone who we thought wasn't going to be able to join us for the team. And then he didn't work a whole lot, so he wasn't tired, which is nice because all of us were kind of exhausted. And then on day 4, which was Wednesday, we worked our half day, and then we got to go over to the Beck's, and we probably had the best food that I have ever had at Cherokee, because we got takeout Chinese food. And it was really good. And then later, after we ate food, I had the pleasure of explaining the historical accuracy of many different items you can find commonly in your household. Stuff like cheerwine, pink lemonade, chopsticks, water, because water differs from place to place and sometimes it's hard to find. And then egg rolls. And then Catherine joined me later, and we went on a 22 minutes and 7 second speech about the history of shoes and how it began and why shoes were invented in the first place. That was not historically accurate, but it was probably pretty close. And then what day am I on now? Sorry. And then so usually during the first part of the days, I would help and do a lot of heavy lifting and moving stuff. And I shoveled a lot of gravel, because we literally had our own gravel crew. That's all we did for almost the entire day. Shovel gravel into a wheelbarrow or the back of a trailer, and then we would unshovel it from the back of the trailer into another wheelbarrow. And then we would dump it, and then we would shift it all around, and then we would just do it all over again, and again, and again, and again. And then it was lunchtime. And then I decided my arms and shoulders hurt, so I switched over to painting, which is a nice, relaxing thing to do. I joined Mrs. Lehman and her team. I painted the walls and other people, but mainly the walls. And then I tried to help Will move a lot of wood, but I realized very quickly I am super weak, so I quickly stopped doing that because I hurt my back. And that about sums up my week. But I'm really thankful for all this support and all the conversations and time that I've had there. And for the car ride with the Lamans, it was really fun to get to know them and talk throughout the car ride there, because we really didn't talk that much on the way back because everyone was tired. But thank you again for supporting the team and for allowing me to go another year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ariana. So first I just want to say thank you for all of your prayers and all of your support for this team. It really just wasn't this team going out, it was an extension of our church, and it really means a lot to us to have your support for us. This was my 4th year going to Cherokee, and it was a very special year, especially for me. I was not planning to be here this summer, so I wasn't expecting to be able to go to Cherokee. But in March, everything kind of fell through, and it was a huge blessing from the Lord that I ended up being able to go, and I'm very grateful for it. So in the midst of everything going on, all the disappointments, all the uncertainties, I was humbled and blessed and encouraged by this trip. We went into the trip not really knowing what to expect, how it would go. We just knew it would probably be a little bit different than years past, but it ended up being a wonderful time of fellowship, of hard work, and of seeing what the Lord is doing in Cherokee. I was very grateful for this opportunity to serve. And like Mr. Storm said, it was really a neat opportunity to go and to serve our missionaries in a very intentional way that usually we aren't really doing. We're supporting their ministry always, but it was neat to be able to go and focus our efforts more on serving them and kind of getting to spend more time with them and the staff members, and that was really neat. During the week, I was really struck by the blessing of fellowshipping. I didn't realize just how much that would mean to me to be with people, and especially to be together and to be able to fellowship. It was just nice to be able to relax and laugh and sing songs and worship and have devotions, and it was a very special thing and something that I've been missing. I was also struck by the reality that God is still at work in us and in the world, even though everything seems to have gone off the end. The Lord is still working, and He is doing amazing things. I was also struck by the flexibility and the hard work and the perseverance and the faith that was on this team. I was up on the roof for a couple days with Mr. Lehman and Nathan Lehman, and it was neat to be able to look out and see everybody at their own little jobs. Everyone kind of found different little niches to fill, and that's one of my favorite parts of going on these teams, is seeing everyone kind of find their little way to serve and way to support the team. And I thought that was really cool. It was amazing, too, to watch how everyone was so willing to step in wherever was needed, even if you could kind of tell they probably didn't want to do it, but they weren't going to tell you that. So that was really, really cool. It also was so neat during a lot of the devotions that were led by different team members to see how they were desiring and pursuing the Lord and encouraging us to do the same. I was also struck by how the hope and the trust that we can and we must have in waiting on the Lord, and that there is a continuing need in Cherokee for the hope of Christ and the gospel. It is a culture that you can tell there's a little bit of a hopelessness there, and it's neat to see the work that the Hills are doing and the Becks are doing in bringing that hope to Cherokee. I was also struck we were encouraged by Pastor Scott Hill about the importance of really praying for and supporting our pastors and our missionaries and church leadership, especially in this time. They've been tasked with a big task, and in this time it's been difficult for them. And so it was neat to be able to go and in a small way to be able to support, especially the Hills and the Becks. This trip overall was an encouragement to my heart in what has kind of felt like a dry season, to hope and to continue to trust and wait on the Lord, and to be spurred on to keep seeking the Lord by the faith and encouragement of others and being with His people. And I just wanted to finish with a verse that has really stuck with me all the times that I've gone to Cherokee, and it was very special this time in particular as well. This is Isaiah 40, 25 through 31. It says, "To whom then will you compare me, that I should be like him, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. He who brings out their host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power, not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known, have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might he increases strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. Thank you.
Although this year was really different from the past years, I really enjoyed this trip. And one of my favorite parts about this trip would just have to be like spending time with the people on this trip. People were like really close this year. Like they had a positive attitude. On the work site, everyone was so encouraging. Like I'd just be like painting on the wall and all of a sudden hear, "Good job, Juliana, you're doing a good job." Or like hear other people encouraging each other. And it was great to hear. This year I got to help with the stair crew. There's like a picture of me up there, like removing stairs and putting in new stairs. And I also got to help with shoveling the gravel as well as painting and scraping because I injured my thumb, so I had to move on to an easier job. And then later I got stung by a wasp later in the week. I still have like a mark from it, but thankfully I'm not allergic to wasps, so that was a relief to hear. I think by the end of the week, it was really fun. We got to know each other so well. We were just like singing on the top of our lungs to like random Disney songs or the Moses musical while painting. That was really fun to do. And then I think it was on Tuesday that we had like this huge thunderstorm. Like it started thundering and pouring down rain, and then I saw like the people still on the roof, and I was like, are they gonna come down? Thankfully they did before, like I saw this huge like lightning bolt just come down and like hit an electrical pole like off in the distance, and then all of a sudden Mrs. Lehman and I heard a and we're like, what just happened? And then the power went out. But it was kind of scary but oddly fascinating. It was kind of cool to see like the lightning bolt come down. But yeah, then afterwards we had ice cream, and then Scott came, so we had our complete team. The other great memories I had on this trip was playing the cajon drum, or I call it the box drum because it's just easier to say. Because I haven't played the drum in months, so it's just very encouraging to worship on the team by playing the drum. I also really enjoyed singing worship songs with people, as well as hanging out at the Beck's house and listening to Joseph and Catherine share stories about random objects, or the time that we were assigned skits. We had this one night where we were share skits on Cherokee folk tales, which was hilarious. It was so much fun. I also enjoyed leading a group devotion with Ariana on Isaiah 40:25-31. She just read that earlier. And as I said earlier, I just really enjoy spending time with the group as a whole. It was really nice, especially since I've hardly got to spend any time with people during quarantine. It was just so nice to get together with everyone. I'm so thankful that God gave us the opportunity to serve in Cherokee. I have so many amazing memories there. And if you are looking to serve in the mission, on the mission, to be a missionary, if you want to be a missionary, I highly recommend going to Cherokee, because that is a good place to start. And with that, I hope to see you again next year.
Hi, so I'm Daniel, one of the 4 layman children. The person that they're braiding the hair is me. I didn't know that he put that in there. But yeah, so this was my first time going to Cherokee, so I really didn't know what to expect, especially since it was I was told that it was going to be weird, but I didn't have a reference point, so I didn't really know what to expect. But what was it like? There was a campground, as Mr. Storms mentioned. If you've ever been to Camp Hemlock, it's actually a lot nicer than that. So, I mean, I had no problem with it. I loved it. I thought it was great. There were some things that did need work, and we did get to work on those, which was fun. Every morning we did have devotions at 6:30, which is fine because I got up at 5 and so did a lot of other people, so it was fun to just be reading the Bible with a couple other people early in the morning. And then, so what did I do during the week? I did a lot of stuff. I was part of the team that worked on the set of stairs in the beginning of the week, and during the brunt of the hard work, which was tearing out the old railroad ties, because I knew how to use a chainsaw, I was doing really easy work, and I didn't necessarily want to be doing that because I wanted to be with everybody, but it was fun. I got to hang out with Jerry. Jerry is cool. I don't remember his last name. I'm just realizing that. What?
Jerry Knight.
Jerry Knight. Okay.
Travis Knight's father. You guys remember Travis?
All right. And then once we finished doing the stairs, we needed to fill them in with gravel. So I volunteered for that, and so did Emily, and I think Juliana originally. Or am I mixing this up? Okay, I got it right. And then so a bunch of people rotated through there. I stayed on there pretty much the whole time we were doing it. It was really fun because it was, the way it kind of went was a bunch of hard work, and then you got like 5 minutes break as you were like in the back of the pickup truck moving the gravel to the wherever we were going to put it. So we did get to talk a lot during that time, so that was great. And then after that, well, in the middle of that, I don't know. My timeline is kind of messed up right now. There was a platform outside the Hills' old house. Guess it was meant to be like a place where you could have a barbecue or something, but it kind of created an artificial swamp, so we had to remove it. That was fun. A fun story with that was we were taking it out, and so the boards that were horizontally under it, trying to support it, they were nailed in from the side, so we figured out the best way to get them out was to lift them up and let them fall to pull the nails out. Well, one of them fell. Emily Drape lifted one up, and it fell in the mud, and it blasted me with the mud. I was covered in head to toe with mud, so I was standing there just blinking. And then she turns around, and then she starts laughing, and then I start laughing, and then we were just laughing hysterically for, was it like 5 minutes? Yeah, it was like 5 minutes. And then after that, Joseph mentioned moving the wood. We tried to do with Will and also Norman the first couple times. I joined that group. That was great. Again, more of the hard work for a little bit, and then you sat in the car while you drove to where we were dropping them off. Scott, did we drop it off at, was it a council member of the Cherokee? Yes, so we dropped it, there was a council member who needed firewood, so we brought a ton of firewood over to his property, and that was fun. I got to talk about, with Will and Norman, we got to talk a lot about, well, theology and philosophy and justice, that was awesome. I loved that. And then, yeah, so that's most of what we did. Oh, and with the stairs, a fun story with the stairs. There used to be a lamp on the top of the stairs. And they disconnected it because they got rid of it. But apparently the power line was still active, and no one knew where it was, and I didn't know it was there. So I put a piece of rebar straight through it. The only way we found out is that Emily started feeling the ground, and she's like, "Ooh, the ground is tingly." And so yeah, that was interesting. Something that was really great was the team itself. So Juliana mentioned that she got stung and she's not allergic to wasps. Well, I am, and I got stung, and it was a mild reaction. I didn't need to EpiPen myself or anything, but I'm just sitting there, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep working because this is nothing serious. And then Scott and Will are just like, no, you're not. And so I was ordered to do nothing, which was really hard. Yeah, and so this week, the Cherokee week, I learned a lot of things. So I started out the week with the goals because he asked us to make some goals for the week. My 2 goals were to grow in prayer and to be useful to the people at the camp. So growing in prayer was really fun because they had this thing called the prayer chair, where the idea was throughout the day there was always someone sitting there praying for the team. That was amazing, and I loved that. That was one of my favorite things about there. I did also make it a point to ask a lot of people for prayer requests, and I've been trying to keep up with most of them, so I have like a running list now, which is something that I didn't used to have. Also, I volunteered to do a devotion for my first time at Cherokee. I also volunteered to do it on Monday, which, pro tip, if it's your first time going to Cherokee, I might not volunteer to lead a devotion on Monday, because then you'll have no idea what it's supposed to be like. But I think it went well, so. And then at the end of the week, when something was really, I made some friends that I didn't expect to make. I really didn't expect to become friends with Emily and Jamie because I just had never talked to them before. I got to grow in some friendships I already had. And then there was the car ride back. That was awesome. I was in the big 15-passenger van. You can hear the people from Cherokee laughing in the background. And Pastor Shaw, and I asked Pastor Sean if I could play the music. Well, I forgot that my music always makes me cry a lot. So I started crying, and then Jamie started crying, and then Emily started crying, and then Jessica started crying, which I'm told is really hard to do. And so that was great. Yeah, so that was a fun. I am actually prayerfully considering doing an internship at Cherokee next year. I really want to do that, so if you would all pray for me as I try to figure out if I'm going to do it and then how to do that, that would be amazing. And I'm going to turn it over to one of my other siblings, whatever order we're going in. So thanks.
Hi, so I'm Emily Lehman. I've been coming to Cherokee for about 3 years now, and I had the privilege of my whole family coming with me, which was really nice. I went with my family, and then everyone there was just an extended version of that family, which was so nice to have. As you can probably tell, I'm not really built for a 6-hour workday. So worked really hard Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday I was like, I can't do this. On top of that, I had a chronic issue that flared up, and I'm so thankful for my mom for handling that very well. But everyone on the team, it was so refreshing just having so many people check in, constantly asking me how I'm doing. I was just not used to that fellowship. It'd been months since I'd been with more than one person at a time, and it was just a blessing and so grateful. But I think I went through what I was going to talk about really fast. But one of the pictures is my mom, Nathan, Scott, it was either Scott or Will in the background playing piano. And I was just so grateful for that opportunity. It was after all this and not being able to worship with anyone in the same way that we had been worshiping, it was amazing. Scott, thank you for playing the piano. I just love that so much. And Will and Ariana played for us too. And I'm just grateful for everyone contributing to the trip, all the prayer. I needed a lot of prayer. It was very physically challenging for me, but I made it with everyone's help physically and prayer support, and so I'd like to thank you all for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine, who has some other highlights from the week.
Hello. I'm Catherine Lehman. I forget to say my name. It was my first year coming, and I had the pleasure and honor to come with my family, which was nice because it was just, you could have the comfort of home, away from home, but in another home. I really enjoyed it, and it was really relieving to come to Cherokee with people from church
that you like that you didn't get to see for months, and then you could be fellowshipping with them, and it was just really enjoyable. And I have a few highlights. I'm just gonna try and do this in an order that might make sense, but the devos were really helpful. It was a really good way to start the day, and it was like I loved thinking about how much time and effort each person would put into their devo. And another highlight was Sunday. It was the next day after we arrived, and it was also a nice way to just start the whole entire week. I know people from Cherokee in the past wouldn't really get to come and worship at the church, but this year we did. And it was just a nice way to start the week. The work days were probably they were my favorite days because you could just talk with people while working. I got to work on the gravel team, but it was the stair team before. So Emily and I, the whole team was Daniel, Emily Drape, Joseph, Juliana, Will, Mr. Jerry, and I hope I'm not forgetting someone, and myself. And it was really enjoyable because we just knocked out the stairs. The guys got to use the hammers to put in the rebar. The girls got to use the sledgehammers to put in the stairs. And then we just went to pick up gravel, filled in the stairs, and then the whole week I got to do gravel and more gravel and more gravel. But then the last day I got to do painting. And it was enjoyable to talk with people I didn't get to talk to during the work hours. I still have paint in my hair. That might take a while to get out. It was the primer, which can't get washed out, so you just have to wait it out, which, yeah. Another point, the meals were amazing, but I really enjoyed the time before the meals and after the meals and during the meals when we got to just talk and how's this going at the work site? It was just really relaxing, if that makes sense, to just talk with people you didn't get to talk to that much. In addition, whenever we had time, we'd go to where we ate and play cards and get a little too excited about playing cards. But we did have Scott play the piano just over all of the loud noise. And it was just, you could take a break from working and then just enjoy your time with people again. Another highlight I have is Wednesday. The whole day was amazing. You got to work in the morning, and then we got to go to the river after lunch, and then going to the Beck's house was enjoyable, and I kind of missed out on half the fun, but then I got invited inside to talk with Joseph and everyone else about shoes and the whole history of shoes. And it's amazing, and I can't believe most people didn't know the whole history about shoes. I thought that was a normal thing to know, but apparently it isn't. So, yeah, I did miss all the things about chopsticks and pink lemons and all the other things Joseph talked about. And we only got 22 minutes and 7 seconds to talk about shoes, which was surprisingly very little amount of time. We got, Mr. Storms he had to make a stop at the 16th century and then summarize to the 20th century. And we just didn't get to talk about everything, but I mean, I guess that has to happen at some point. The devotions also, Mr. Hill, he talked about Joshua, the whole book of Joshua, and it was really nice to see it from a, like I didn't think about it that way, and so it was, I understood it, and so yeah. Trip going down and the trip going back was really fun. The trip going back, everyone was tired, so it was more quiet, but everyone was still joyful, and yeah, and overall it was a really good trip. I have a lot of memories that I'll have from Cherokee, and I hopefully am coming back next year because it was just relieving, and just, yeah, I really liked serving the missionaries. And thank you for whoever prayed and gave for our trip. And I want to thank Mr. Storms. He organized most of the trip, and it's amazing how much effort and time he put into the trip, but he's not acknowledged as much as he should be. And thank you for everyone who prayed for our trip, and thank you.
Hello, so I'm Nathan, and just so you guys know, that photo, the last day, and I'm really tired. It's probably about 10 o'clock. We're all still trying to write letters to everyone. But I enjoyed our trip to Cherokee. It was a great trip. When we got to the church, we all congregated and just waiting for everyone to get there. Then we all heard the sad news that Scott wasn't going to be able to come. We're all really down, like that's sad, but we still made the best of it. We had Chick-fil-A sandwiches right when we got there, which was nice. We had food, and food is amazing. If you guys haven't had food before. But then we had our group photo, and as you guys saw, Scott was right up there looking on us. It was awesome. But the trip down was, thankfully, I'm an introvert, and I really don't like to be with a lot of people. So thankfully, I could stay in my own car with Joe, my mom, my dad, and Emily. So it was quiet. It was fun. We talked a decent amount of time, and it was an enjoyable trip down. So when we got there, we got to our cabins. We put everything down. We got our beds ready. We got everything. So then we went down to the chow hall. We met everyone there. We played a little bit of 9 Square, which if you guys haven't played, it's a really fun game. It's pretty competitive sometimes. A lot of people like slamming a ball down on you. It's not fun. But the meals, you got to serve meals, so you can sign up to serve meals. I signed up for lunch, but apparently I signed up for dinner, so I was not prepared for that. So right when I got there, I had to wash my hands, sing happy birthday twice for 30 seconds to wash my hands. And then we had to wear these gloves. They're really sticky and hot, so I made the unfortunate choice to put them on early. My hands were sweating at the end of that, but it was fun. So we had our food, and it was awesome. So Sunday, like everyone said, it was so nice to be in the church and have worship service in there. It was really good. But the rest of the day was completely free. So we played cards for 5 hours straight. A lot of us got really competitive playing capitalism. So a lot of us kind of we all had fun during it, but we all kind of got a little frustrated a little bit that some of us were beating them and not losing and winning 5 times straight. But we all had fun. And then we had Monday. So every morning, you wake up at least 6 o'clock to go down to the pavilion and have a daily devotion. So as most of you, at least my family knows, I am not a morning person. So I woke up at 5 just so I can get an early start in the day. I thought that, okay, that was good, I'm fine. The next day, I woke up late. I'm like, oh snap, I'm late. But Monday, well, let me get back to Monday. Monday, so we were down there, we signed up for our jobs. I took the roof, which we thought was only going to take an afternoon, but we were wrong. So when we got to the work site, well, a couple feet away, we climbed onto the roof. We saw what we have to do, so we brought a bunch of stuff onto the roof. So we start tarring, and tarring, and tarring. And then the tar gets all over you. There's no way to not get tar on you. But at the end, about the afternoon, it's probably 250 or 200 degrees on the top of that roof. So my shoes started to melt. And so they melted a tiny bit, and then we had lunch. Lunch was amazing. And then we got back on the roof and started tarring and laying down asphalt. So at the end of that, my shoes kind of started falling off my feet. It wasn't very good. And then at the end we had dinner, and we played 9 Square again. That was great. So then we had Tuesday. It's basically the same time as Monday. We had a morning devotion, and it was all good. And then about the afternoon, my shoe completely just fell off. It was gone. So I had to get duct tape all around my shoe, and I'll get back to my shoe later. And then it was a great day, and then we had Wednesday. So Wednesday, I was really tired. I woke up late again, and then so we worked half the day, and I couldn't wear my shoes anymore because they're just not the best. It's kind of unstable. And then so I wore my other tennis shoes, which got tar all over them. But then we had our free time. We went to the river. It was really nice. Everyone started swimming. It was fun. Surprisingly, there's a lot of people there, like a lot. It was hard to social distance, but we all made it. We had a great time there, and then we went to the Becks. As everyone said, it was a great time there, and then we came back. So Thursday, same time basically as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. My goodness, Monday. Okay. Don't take what I said there. But it was a great time. We did all of our jobs. Friday, I think we found this little praying mantis called Marty. Marty was a great little praying mantis. So Emily found him, and then they took care of him for about 30 minutes, and then they found him dead on the side. So Maddie, this is what I've been told. She thought it was just a leaf. She thought it was like a grass. So she stepped on it and slid it to the ground. Then whoever found it, like, wait, that's Marty. Marty's dead. And then they had a funeral for like 30 minutes, I don't know, singing really sad songs to it, burying it. It was sad. So then at night we're like, wait, we don't have a mascot. So they all took my shoe, we signed it, and then we called it Marty. Marty, the melted shoe. So everyone signed it. It got a little damaged on the way home, but it survived. And I'm really thankful that I went to this trip. I'm thankful for everyone who supported me, who prayed for us. And we really thank Mr. Storms for doing all that he did for us, and all the leaders who came. And we all loved Jerry. Jerry was, not Marty, but Jerry. Jerry was the senior member there. He was really funny, even though he was a really quiet dude, but everyone adored him. He was amazing. I got the privilege to work with him on Friday, like the whole entire day. But I'm really looking forward to the next time we go. Hopefully I can do it next year. But thank you guys for all you did for us, supporting us, praying for us, giving your hard-earned money to let us go. Thank you all.
You know, I can't figure out why everybody keeps talking about me. Anyway, one of the benefits of coming in late is that you get to skip kitchen duty. That was not intentional, by the way, Jay. I was very discouraged when I first got the news that I wasn't going to be able to go to Cherokee. Usually, last year it was the highlight of my year, and this year that was, it was a bummer not to be able to go again. But when I discovered my roommate had contracted what seemed like symptoms of the virus, it seemed like it was pretty much just set. Little did I know that God was simply teaching me a lesson. So I got news from him Monday night. I had literally heard him on the phone in the basement saying, "Oh, well, that's good then, thank you." And I yelled at him, says, "You're negative?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "Sweet!" So I called Jay, or I called Sean, I forget who, and I said, "Hey, can I come down?" And they said, "Sure." So I went and I packed my bags, literally took me a couple hours, threw everything in the car, went to bed. I could not sleep that night. I was so excited. I got up at 5:30 that morning and I drove until I got there at 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, whatever it was. It was a bit of a longer drive because I take some time and I stop every once in a while. So when I walked through that door, the entire team erupted in cheers and applause, and I was not expecting that. I was completely caught off guard. It made my week. As several have testified, it made their week as well. But it drove home to me just how loved I am. Not just by, my God, but by how he brings people around me to love me, and how loved I am in this church here. It's a testament to his faithfulness, really. It shows you how he just, brings people together for his glory and for his good, for our good. It was a wonderful start to the week for me. So, as Joseph commented, I didn't do as much work as the rest of them. Well, that's because I basically did the same amount of work that I would do in a normal week at Cherokee. I kept wondering by Thursday, I was like, why am I so tired? I've only been here 2 days. Well, that's because I'd been working for that entire time. But I also got the opportunity to supervise people on the gravel team. So that was an interesting learning experience for me. Learning how to let people do things, even if it might seem not the way I would want to have it done, is something that it was humbling. It was really something that God said, no, this doesn't have to be done exactly right. I want you to let them work, essentially, through that opportunity. So it was a good learning experience. But supervising in and of itself, I've learned, is also a different kind of work, and it's actually harder for me than manual labor. I would prefer to do the labor myself. The other things that I really enjoyed were things that are very near and dear to my heart. Is the morning worship is always refreshing. It's wonderful to sing God's praise with his people and to hear the joy that every single member of the team has in singing God's praise. Just brought a wonderful fulfillment of joy to my heart. It made my joy full, realizing that I was with God's people, and it's just a little taste of heaven. It was really very wonderful. The striking thing about that I noticed was it is, as Bruce had mentioned, it's a testament to God's faithfulness, where you see him working, and you see him bringing people together, you see him making one people out of people of all, diverse backgrounds. So it was a very moving testament to his power and his grace. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was something that Daniel mentioned, is when we were hauling firewood. It's not in the pictures here, but Will and I think I helped them the last day when Norman wasn't able to go, or maybe it was the other way around. But we had hauled roughly what probably amounted to about 2 to 3 tons of firewood. I'm not joking. It was a lot of firewood. And as Jay, most of you know Jay, know he likes to fish, and fishermen can be prone to exaggeration. And he's exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. These logs were around 18 to 24 inches in diameter. They were massive, and it was a lot of work to get them onto the trailer. We had to roll them. We couldn't pick them up for the most part. And then when we got back to the councilman's yard, we were basically having to roll them off the back of the trailer. And narrowly missed one getting away, by the way. I had to chase after it, which was quite a sight. But after we finished, the councilman came up to us after we just dropped off our last load. He said, "I want to thank you guys for what you're doing. This means a whole lot to us and to the community around." And Will had told us that afternoon that he actually hires people to split this wood and distribute it to the community, so that they don't have to do, so they aren't, people who aren't able to do the work themselves can have heat in their homes or wood to burn for cooking, etc. I've sent this out in the email, but it bears repeating here. It reminds me of a few things. You never know just how deeply a simple act of compassion or service can touch someone and show them the love of Jesus. The second is love is often made up, love often requires us to do hard things and deny ourselves, but it is always worth it, even if the rewards that we have don't come on this side of glory. And lastly, the joy of being in our Lord and Savior's presence and hearing his well done just makes those hard things seem completely insignificant. Thank you.
I wanted to read from Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 14. The Apostle Paul writes this: "Yet it was kind of you to share in my trouble, and you Philippians yourselves know that in the beginning of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church entered in a partnership with me in giving and receiving except you only. Even in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs once and again. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit and increase to your credit. I have received full payment and more. I am well supplied, having received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. To our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen." With all the things that have been said, this trip shows something. It's how, the work of, the mission work of helping missions work, is what I was thinking about. There's a mission work in helping missions work. And it's sort of invisible. The passage I just read is kind of an invisible story to the Apostle Paul. I mean, we have it written down for us because it's in the scripture. But people probably didn't really know how this church was supporting them. Things at Epaphroditus, a lot of things were silent. If you read the end of so many of his letters, the Apostle Paul's letters, you see this silent witness that's going on of supporting work that's going on. If you look at the Cherokee people, there is a place which is, significantly affected by drugs and alcohol. You see, single household families. You see, significant health problems that are going on in the community as well. And with the work that's going on there, they're able to reach in that community and to build a new community within that community, and of a Christ-centered, gospel-believing believers. And it really is. I mean, I was encouraged by, as Bruce said, the quality of the people of our youth who were there, the quality of Jay's leadership, and the commendation that was there. But to think that we have this opportunity to be involved behind the scenes with what God is doing, because this is a missions outpost to reaching this community with the gospel. These people are here a full year. the missionaries that are there, they're there year round. And to come and do the significant work that they were able to do is a really big deal. And I just mentioned that in part because, for each one of us, so much of what we do is invisible in the work of missions, but God uses those things. And so it might be fixing siding or doing painting or building some shelves. It'll be fixing the roof. But all these things, if you have to pay attention to it later, that takes away from the work that you have to do. If you have to spend money on it later because of this problem, it takes away the resources and time in order to reach the people that are there. And so, when you think about missions, it's a bit of a picture for us, to think that, some work of missions is the mission work of supporting the mission work. And we want to be deeply involved with that. And so, I just want to say the name of those people who were there. I know I saw the picture, but if you went, I just want to make sure I draw attention to you that you went. So if you went, would you raise your hand? Because I know we've had a few people come. Maddie Whiteneck went, Jay Storms. We have the Lehman family, Bruce, Sharon, Emily, Nathan, Catherine, and Daniel. Was there, who else? You gotta keep your hands up until I call you. James Lino and Sophia Lino is over here from Hope of Christ. And we're so glad to have Hope of Christ with us. All right, who else? Ariana, Juliana, Joseph, and Jamie, Jessica Hinson, and Emily Drape, and Scott. You had Scott, Sheriff, and Will Hepperly was also part of it. So thank you for that, and again, thank you for your support in that. Let me just mention a couple of things from this next slide. I don't know if I can see it well enough. There was, you can see at the top right there, Jessica Hinson working so hard, it builds her muscles. Top left, that's that 10-pound sledgehammer with Emily Drape that you can see, and Maddie Whiteneck painting some siding. We replaced some siding there. We stripped a whole building full of paint. We stripped all the paint off of it and was able to paint it. And so you can see them stripping paint and then putting the paint up and then working on the staircase, which has been mentioned as well. Next slide. There was some fun team building activities that happened. As was mentioned, mission trips can be greenhouse environments of growth. A lot of the youth would organize a morning Bible study for us all. So they took time to study the scripture, ask good questions, work through guiding people towards the truth of the scripture. One night we went through some Cherokee myths, some of the fables, some of the myths, which talk about how they got to be where they were. And so you can see in that middle picture Jessica Hinson dressing up as the sun. You can see her sunglasses and her sun fingers. See James Lino there, minute to win it game and some nine square. But time, it's a greenhouse time, a time to look in God's word, have a few Bible studies through the day, grow and be challenge each other to grow in the truth. And so, some of those things are the connection together with the work really make a big difference in the lives of each person who's there also. I think the next slide has prayer, and Jay's going to come back up and work through some prayer requests for Cherokee. Thank you, Jay.
So last couple slides, and I've put this up in the past, but what can you guys do? Let me just read through these. Pray to intervene on behalf of the poor and the needy, wherever they are, in Fredericksburg, Cherokee, around the world. Take some time to soften your hearts, identify how you can work for their good, whether that's on a mission trip like a Cherokee or something that we're doing here at church at New Life. Reveal ways that you can sacrifice more. Even in the midst of COVID, the mission and the gospel does not stop because of things going on in the world. And I think that's important. That was something that really came home to me when we were there. Participate. Investigate some ways that you can be active in local ministries here, or even in the church. Look at your budget. And I'm not just talking about money, but what do you do with your time? What do you do with your resources? I think each of us, if we really thought about it, could find a way that we could be serving other people. Make a list of your talents and assets. One of the things I learned early on from Pastor Doug is, to identify what, things that you're good at, and also to set goals and be looking out to the future. What are you doing with your life now? And what could you be doing, a week from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now? And I think that's so important. There's many ways you can serve the gospel of Christ, whether it's on a short-term missionary trip, a long-term, maybe full-time missions, or maybe the ministry, or maybe there's a ministry in the church that God's calling you to. Mark 10:29-31 says, "So Jesus answered and said, Assuredly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my sake and the gospel's, who shall not receive 100-fold now in this time, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and lands with persecutions, and in the age to come eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first." Great verse. What the things that we do, and I think you heard just a flavor of it from the funny stories and the hard work stories as well. There's a lot of sacrifice that went on that week. And it wasn't without some cost. Taking a week out of your time doesn't seem like that much, but it really was. And especially in this time, being able to get together like that, there was truly a risk, and I was thinking about it going down even, what if somebody caught COVID, or, what would we do? The Lord was very gracious in protecting us from all of that. We started every day by taking everybody's temperature, just little things that we did differently that you wouldn't think of normally. But God was there, and he took care of us. Next slide. Every year I put this up, would you consider coming next year? 1 John 3:17-18 says, "But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth." And that's really something to consider in your daily lives. God has put us here for a purpose. We're on this planet for just a blink of time when you consider eternity. And what are you going to do with that time? So, thank you. For allowing us to go on this trip. I know I was really, I didn't think we'd be able to go. So, you get to see me cry.